Hey everyone, this is Ben Schmidt here. I am the director of, getting some stuff figured out here. Hey everyone, this is Ben Schmidt. I am the Chief Security Officer at PolySwarm, as well as one of the co-founders. I'm really excited to be here today. You guys sent in a ton of questions that I'm really excited to get on answering. First, I just want to go over sort of what we've been doing for the last year or so. It's been a wild ride. We're very, very excited about everything we've been able to achieve. And I then will sort of go over what we're doing over the next 6 months or so and illustrate all the wonderful things we've been able to accomplish with the project so far. So, as you know, it's been about a year since our ICO, and we have been doing tons and tons of work to make everything stable, make everything fast, and build this marketplace. So that's not just building the technology, but getting participants on both sides of the marketplace, the supply and the demand side. And right now, we've been hugely successful at being able to do that. We've already onboarded almost 30 engines into the PolySwarm marketplace, where they're scanning over 250,000 files a day using our test cryptocurrency. We also actually have over 20 enterprise POCs that have signed up in the last couple months to test out the platform. And when we go live on Mainnet, we'll actually be consuming intelligence from our network using this cryptocurrency. So it's things are going really, really well. The mainnet should be live pretty shortly, and Nectar will start to flow. So I will get into a few of the questions here, I guess. So I've covered this one a little bit, but we finished raising funds about a year ago to build the product. What progress have we made since then? So the answer is tons of progress. We've hit nearly 30 engines, as I said. We've got 20 enterprise POCs, including companies such as Dell, as well as companies like Telefonica, a very large security provider that handles one of the largest vehicle manufacturing companies in the world, manages security for them, are trialing us as well. One of the largest code hosting platforms in the world is doing a trial to scan user-provided files for maliciousness. And all of this supply is met with a ton of, all of this demand is met with a ton of supply as well. All these engines that we have on, everyone from Alibaba to 360, all the way down to small individual researchers, which are core to what we're trying to achieve on the platform, are hooking in their engines and are getting ready to make a lot of money on the platform. So what am I most excited about this year? Well, I am thrilled to actually get Nectar and have it start flowing over this network. So paying these security experts and actually giving better threat intelligence to all of the customers that are trialing the platform. So as this competitive marketplace evolves, it gets better and better. As we add more people to both sides of the marketplace, the information gets better. So I'm very, very excited for the actual financial component of this to go live. We're hoping that will happen here at the end of this month. But that is contingent on scaling questions that we'll get into later, but also on some of the security stuff that I am a little bit at fault for being the security officer here at PolySwarm. So another question that we got was how the transition to Mainnet has been. And to be frank, it's been slower than expected, but that's because of the overwhelming demand that we've had. So, you know, when we were building this, we were targeting, in the hundreds of thousands of files for 1.0 scanning. Right now, with just with the POCs that we have signed up, the aggregate demand for scanning on this network is in the tens of millions daily. So we need to be very careful about making sure that we have the capacity to deal with all these files and actually push them through the marketplace in a way that is also safe. So, because we're pushing some of these technologies to the absolute limit for which they're designed, obviously, we run into problems, specifically with Geth has issues with some of the pretty intense things that we're doing with it. So it can't, it has some troubles handling the small block times that we're putting on it, and actually just handling the number of transactions necessary for all these participants to vote on things every single time an artifact is provided. So when can we expect a full transition to mainnet, and what will change? The answer is not much. So if you go onto PolySwarm.network, not much visible anyway. So if you go into PolySwarm.network, upload a file today, you could scan it, and all of that is working with a test token that is basically more or less identical to Nectar, but has no value. So what will change from everyone else's perspective is basically nothing. However, what will happen is, because now these votes are actually being made with real money, suddenly all these engines have to get their voting strategies correct. And we've been working with all these different engines to tailor exactly how these voting strategies should work. Because this is a new concept, a lot of people have a lot of questions. So we're helping them sort of address what potential issues they may have before they're actually using real currency. So right now, it's useful for us to actually let them sort of figure out those strategies on their own before they're actually using real money. Because once they use real money, if they end up losing a lot, we could lose some of those POCs, which would obviously be problematic for the network. So we want to make sure that as we onboard these engines, they know whenever we go live, they're actually going to be making money. So there's another question about the current engines on the marketplace act sometimes strange. For example, the total bounty count is sometimes less than the day before. So actually that total bounty count, because of the way it's calculated right now, it's actually done in 24-hour chunks. So as soon as one 24-hour period is done, the number of bounties for that new period that just opened is actually 0. So what actually, so it's not that new bounties aren't coming in. It's that the counter is reset, and now we're moving, and now the actual count is 0. But it's really not a problem per se. But we may change some of the messaging around that so it's clearer. As far as engines in the marketplace acting strange, like I said, some of them are still adopting their strategies, so they may vote on certain things or may not vote on other things. We don't have direct control over a lot of that because they're connecting into our platform. It's decentralized, so anyone can connect in, do whatever they want. So it's actually possible that these engines are just trying out new strategies as well. So if you see some things respond sometimes but not other times, that might be the reason. So how do we expect enterprises to buy NCT in order to consume the threat intelligence of the marketplace? So this ties in with a couple other questions, so I may just wrap them all together. But we are not an exchange. We don't plan to be an exchange. So what we do plan to do is work with existing exchanges that already know how to handle all of the regulation. So the regulatory aspect of handling buying and purchase of tokens, and connect them with the consumers on our platform. So we make it very, very easy for people to just pay subscription fees to the network, but we're working with these with particular exchanges that I can't mention right now, unfortunately, to make it as easy as possible to not only buy Nectar, but also sell Nectar for the experts to actually get paid. So yes, it will be possible for security experts and token holders to sell NCT through these relationships, but PolySwarm won't actually be running the exchange for it because that's not our core business, and we don't plan to spend the massive amounts of time and money that it takes to actually establish an exchange. So we're going to basically make it work with existing exchanges that know how to run all these things and act as an intermediary to help make it easy for all our customers. Where are you acquiring the tokens that will be given to the enterprises in exchange for a fiat subscription? Like I said, a portion of that fiat subscription will actually go towards the purchase of tokens to buy services on the network. We're trying to make that as easy as possible. I unfortunately can't mention specific exchanges. However, we do have some very interesting things coming down the pipeline, and I hope to be able to talk about those soon. So we hear for a long time there is a need for a better exchange. I can't give many updates on that other than we've actually been working very hard on it because it is core to the functioning of the marketplace. So we've been doing a very good job of building up relationships on that front, and I hope I can talk more about it next AMA. So on to more questions about the product and the process. Can I explain what the onboarding process is like for an engine? Well, that's actually an interesting question and a little bit difficult, but I'll sort of go over the larger categories. So some engines, one of the things that they actually really like about this platform is they get to keep their engine in-house. So they don't have to give it to anyone. So, you know, in VirusTotal, for instance, they basically have to give VirusTotal their engine and let them do all this analysis and do all this analysis on Google servers. Well, you know, they don't particularly want to give away, you know, their IP and things like that, and they'd rather just run it internally. So anyway, Sean, thank you. Sorry about that. Loud keyboard in the office. So anyway, the onboarding process. So the onboarding process is actually something that we manage very, very closely to make it as easy as possible for anyone to tie their engine into. In general, there's two types. Either people host it in their own environment because they want to keep their secrets secret, or we actually host it for them. So we will wrap their engine into our network, help them with a bidding scheme, and basically teach them how to go about using, basically just teach them how to get their currency in and out. So we spend a lot of time and effort. We actually have a couple dedicated people towards this question of how to onboard people who basically just spend most of their day working with all these suppliers and answering their questions, making sure that everything functions as they expect. So some people have asked this, you know, I can see engines on the portal that have not been announced yet. Why is that? Well, some of these engines, and I'm sure you can think of a few of them that are on that portal, they have long involved processes as a company for actually releasing PR. So it's difficult to actually push it through their organization. So in general, they just want to not have to deal with that. And because, as I said before, it's a high priority of ours to make it as easy as possible to join, we don't have any requirement whatsoever for them to issue announcements with us. Some of our partners really appreciate us, and and also have much easier processes for doing that. So we announce them whenever our partners actually allow. So we've got a number more announcements up in the pipeline, so stay tuned for that. So another question, is there still a plan to make PolySwarm available for individuals to use? So right now, PolySwarm is available for individuals to use. You can go to polyswarm.network and upload a file if you want to. You prefer to scan files on your local computer. There's something called PolySwarm API. You can find it on our GitHub that allows you to scan files and directories. We do limit the number, the rate limit, the number of files that you can actually scan using the free, the community tier of our platform. And that's simply because whenever we're doing that, we still have to attach money because that's how the marketplace works. So we don't want people to abuse it. We want people to trial it out, but you need to be able to, you know, not lose too much money allowing people to scan things. Now, as for allowing individuals to use their own tokens and scan files that way, that's possible right now. You can get an API key by signing up with polyswarm.network. And there's some documentation on how to interact directly with PolySwarmD to actually do that. So if that's something people are interested in, definitely get in touch with us. So what forward-coming features will be released into the product? So a number of them. So what a lot of people don't understand about PolySwarm is that it's not just for scanning files. So we started with file scanning because it's actually quite straightforward to use, and people understand the concept of scanning files, et cetera. And it was a good way to prove out the concept of using a prediction market for threat detection. However, we're very explicit in our white paper and all our communications that we don't use the word file, we use the word artifact. Now, an artifact can actually be anything that you want to analyze. So not just, you know, I have a file and I want to determine whether or not this is malicious. The actual reality of it is that you can attach other types of artifacts. So network traffic, IPs, domains, URLs, any artifact that a particular enterprise or particular individual wants the network to analyze can actually be analyzed. So the only blocker there is getting engines that are capable of analyzing those artifacts tied into the network. So we're really excited that we're actually moving forward with domain, IP, and URL scanning that we're targeting to have by the end of this quarter. Other types of artifacts we're adding as quickly as we can, but we're actively reaching out and actually already have a few engines that are starting the process of tying into our network. That's pretty exciting. In addition to adding different types of stuff that can be scanned, we're also adding features on top of the network. So allowing people to sell services that are not necessarily scanning or threat detection, but actually selling feeds and additional information on top of their scan results that actually increases the amount of money that they can make. So they can provide additional context and information to users that are scanning files. They get paid for that and are able to actually monetize the intelligence that they have on the network. So those are probably the most exciting features that are coming, but we're making updates every week. And if you keep going back to polyswarm.network, you'll definitely be able to see them. We'll also be announcing some of those features as we go forward on the channels that, the existing social media channels that we have. So Twitter, Telegram, Reddit, et cetera. So the next question is, with engines possibly doing 10,000 plus malware scans a day, eventually hundreds, possibly thousands of engines coming online, how does PolySwarm expect to scale in the Ethereum blockchain? So as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the biggest challenges for us going forward on Mainnet. And I do have to sort of parse this question, but basically, with just the 20 POCs that we have coming online right now, the estimated aggregate scans that our customers have reported to us is actually in the tens of millions if full volume is achieved. So if that actually, as we move towards that, we actually do have a number of scaling challenges. Now, the way that PolySwarm is addressing those challenges is actually using sidechains. So we actually have our own proof of authority sidechain that we refer to as Epic right now. It will eventually migrate over to a mainnet chain, but this chain is hosted. It will be hosted by lots of different parties, so not just us. So the chain will actually, the nodes on this network are actually going to be hosted amongst a lot of our different providers, and we actually have a number lined up that are really excited to get tied into this right now. But that sidechain is actually a slightly modified version of Geth, where we've dropped the block times down to about 1 second and can actually process significantly more transactions per second at much lower fees. So in actuality, the gas fees on this network are basically nothing. So it doesn't actually prevent you from putting these millions of scans a day onto the chain. Now, we're going to be making sure that all of these, transactions and everything are as transparent as possible. Like I said, we're going to make this as open as possible so that all of these different chains can, all of these different participants in the network can run their own chain and see everything that's going on and insert transactions. In addition, we make it really, really easy to move the tokens to and from the sidechain. So you can go onto our GitHub right now. There's a project called Relay that more or less handles moving those tokens to and from the chain. So they're still operating on Nectar tokens. The supply is still limited in the same exact way that it always has been. It's just that you can actually move those tokens to any one of these side chains to be processed. Now, what I haven't gone into is actually our concept of communities. So in addition to having a side chain, we're actually, our vision is to actually open this up to multiple side chains. So you can actually spin up your own side chain and build your own community of engines, so suppliers and consumers, where all of these different transactions can take place on your own network. So if, for instance, a particular enterprise really wants to just have their own chain, they can actually do that, but it still operates on the same Nectar tokens that the rest of the network does. Getting into some other miscellaneous questions, what is the main income for PolySwarm? So our main income is subscription fees. Now, those subscription fees not only pay for the scanning and the consumption of services on the PolySwarm network, but also ancillary services that we build around the side. So there's a lot of data flowing over the network. So a lot of people are really interested in some of the analytics that you can pull from that. So we basically, analyze some of the raw data coming out. We can find out what engines are best at finding particular threats in particular regions, which can greatly help inform, cyber insurance, for instance. There's also additional features that a lot of enterprises want to be able to do that the PolySwarm network doesn't provide. So being able to go back and search over tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of files is something that requires a lot of computing power and a lot of infrastructure to do. So we're making that as easy as possible to go back through all that network as paid features. So all the output, we're actually aggregating and helping people analyze. So I've seen you guys go into big security conferences like RSA and Black Hat. What is the response on the ground been to PolySwarm? I cannot stress enough how phenomenal the response has been. Looking back a year ago, it's been night and day. And I really want to thank all our marketing team and all our community managers for helping us to really build the name PolySwarm in the community. I oftentimes get told, wow, we thought you guys were a lot bigger than you actually are. And it's because of these events. We go to these events and we basically make people aware of the value that we're providing, the new marketplace that we're building. And it's something that the community has wanted for a long time and hasn't really existed. So, an open community where people can actually get paid for providing useful information to the security community that everyone can see what is going on the network, and actually make judgments about that data. So historically, these communities have been closed off or limited in some way, or companies have held large monopolies over this, so over these sets of data. Well, now we're opening it up. We're making it easy for everyone to not only share information, but also get paid for providing useful new information to the network. And that's a concept that excites both suppliers and consumers. So, you know, historically, enterprises haven't had a good way to contract or find all these individual security experts that are sometimes way better at analyzing the things that they need to analyze than some of the larger competitors. And on the flip side, you know, these individual experts now have a platform that they can go and join and actually make money off of that. So I've actually personally been traveling for the last month, going to all these conferences, and I could say that the response is it's overwhelming, and it's fantastic. The community has really accepted us and is really supportive of the kind of open marketplace that we're trying to build. So, can you give us an idea of the potential customers you were talking with that would be using PolySwarm? Like I said earlier, we have a trial running right now with Dell Technologies. They're very interested in some of the individual security experts and what they're providing on the extra value that they're providing in their scan results. We're also trialing with Telefonica, and the volume of files that they're actually anticipating scanning is quite significant. So there's tons of other of these large enterprises which we're generally targeting right now. I wish I could discuss more of them, but I'm sure we will be able to announce some more of them soon. So how can we keep up to date with what's going on PolySwarm? So we try our best to keep the community informed through events like this, but when I'm not on here talking into a camera for hours, you can also find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Twitter is probably my favorite one to follow, given that everything gets posted there pretty quickly. My second favorite is Telegram. We really appreciate the support from all you guys in there. It's very helpful, and it means a lot to us. So it's a great place for information, and also oftentimes gets information before the rest of our social media channels. So definitely sign up there too. All right. I think that's all for the ones that got sent in earlier, but now I'm just going to go through some of these live questions that we've gotten. So 24 feels per second asked, can you talk about some initial feedback from the corps that actually do the POC as we speak? I've heard Dell and Telefonica will try out the marketplace. How do you measure and say the POC was a success? And what is the main sell points for a corp to try out PolySwarm? Price versus VT prices, decentralization, new tech, microengines, etc. So that's actually a great list. We are cheaper than VirusTotal, significantly so. We are decentralized, which actually gives them access to information that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. So, you know, part of the reason that we go around all these conferences all over the world is so that we can actually build this global network that we envision. We don't just want silos in, you know, the US or in Europe or in Asia. We want everyone on the platform so that you can get information from all around the world rather than just, you know, your particular region. So that's actually a big selling point to some of these companies, because they want to make sure they get all the information they possibly can, and PolySwarm actually allows for that. So unlike VirusTotal, which is limited to just, you know, large and medium-sized AV companies, we actually give you access to smaller companies that actually have newer technologies and individual security experts that sometimes have the best tools in their field. They just haven't really had a marketplace to actually sell those things yet. So it's really interesting to a lot of these companies, and to be honest, they're just interested in how the marketplace will work out. The idea that they can actually get a much less noisy signal out of a scanner aggregator is really big to them. So the idea that when you post something, only people who actually know what they're talking about and are confident they're going to be right are actually going to say something, because they stand to lose money otherwise. So what that actually ends up doing is giving you a much better result stream than you would from other companies. So Nick asks, as we've been in a bear down market over the past year, how has this affected PolySwarm, i.e. hiring, reducing team, etc.? So yeah, the down market has obviously negatively impacted all of us. However, we were pretty lucky in the fact that we sold a large portion of the funds that we were raised during much higher times in the market. So PolySwarm has been going ahead and sticking to our schedule as we normally would. So it hasn't really been affecting our hiring. We haven't been reducing our team. We're pushing ahead with the roadmap that we set forth, and we think we've been pretty successful in doing so. Like I said, right now we're in the middle of bringing these POCs on. Most of these POCs are about 30 days, and after that, we really believe that a lot of them are going to convert into paying customers. So I think that might have been a previous question about how we're actually measuring whether a POC was a success. Well, it comes down to conversion. Those companies recognizing the value that is being provided, and making it obvious to them how much better than we are than the competition, and also providing significantly better support to each of these companies than they might otherwise receive from a larger company. And so far, things have been going really well on that front. So Rohit asks, ambassadors are going to reward security engines. Arbiters shall also be rewarded in return. In all this, how is Poly going to benefit and make profit from this platform? So like I talked about earlier, what we're doing as far as the company goes to fund ourselves and keep this company running is something that a lot of open source companies do. We build ancillary services around the side to make sure that it's very, very easy to use a particular platform, and also as make it as streamlined as possible for these enterprises to actually get hooked in and actually consume the better intelligence coming out of this network. So all of these participants are using us, or maybe someone does it better, but we know the technology, and we since we helped build it, but we're basically trying to make it as easy as possible for all these participants to jump in and get moving. So an obvious one of those is making sure that we can help them handle the cryptocurrency aspects of the platform. A lot of them don't want to deal with that because it's difficult for them, either legally in their country or just technically speaking, they don't have the technical support to be able to do that. So we make it as easy to use PolySwarm as it is to use VirusTotal, but they still get to benefit from all the interesting features inside the platform. So Nick also asks, how much of the ICO funds have been used so far? Are there any new updated plans for the funds different than the white paper? So I've talked about some of the things that we're doing moving forward. As you know, we've released 1.0, and the main thing that the funds are being used right now for are going out and continuing to build this marketplace. I think we've more or less reached critical mass, but we want to continue pushing and bringing more and more people into the marketplace so that it remains healthy. As far as how much of the ICO funds have been used so far, I don't know that I have an exact number on that, but basically we sold about half of the Ethereum that we raised right after we raised it, and we've been running just fine off that. So we're pretty happy with how things are going on the money front right now. So when can we expect an update to the roadmap, especially post 2.0, considering there is no current detailed plan after that? I don't have a specific timeline on that right now because, to be honest, we're really busy building right now, more than planning after 2.0. So we will definitely be releasing more details as we add new features, and we'll keep the community posted on that as that goes on. So PolySwarm has been to many security conferences, creating a name presence among InfoSec. What would you say is the biggest compliment and biggest critical feedback on PolySwarm you've heard? I would say the biggest compliment that we've had is probably the number of people that come to us and say, this is a fascinating idea. I can't believe it hasn't been done before, and it's something that we've needed. And that's not something that I've heard from just one person, which is great to hear. You know, and in fact, the vast majority of everything that we hear from people we talk to at these conferences is that it's positive. It really is fantastic how welcoming the community has been. The biggest critical feedback, to be honest, it's just people questioning, whether whether or not we can make it happen, but it's happening. So it's actually very rare for us to have people come up and be critical. And even when they do, in general, it's because of misunderstandings about, blockchain and how we're using it. Skepticism about it is probably the biggest hurdle to overcome in the InfoSec space, to be honest. People feel oftentimes that it's overhyped, or there's not any interesting things you can do with it. But after we explain to them how these prediction markets work and how we're applying them to threat detection, the vibe changes very, very quickly. So I can't stress enough how helpful these conferences have been, though, for raising our name presence and getting our name out there. So Bigger Smiles in Asia said, has there been interest in InfoSec companies becoming ambassadors yet? Arbiters. Yes to both. So there's actually a number of engines already in our platform that have also expressed interest in being ambassadors. So selling access to the network, and we're really happy to help them onboard that. We haven't published our documentation on how to go about doing that yet, but look for that in the near future. Arbiters are we have a ton of interest in. People really like the idea of their engine being good enough to actually become an arbiter. So we're going to be adding a few new ones. I'm not sure that I can mention names, but large AV companies that you've heard of. So those are pretty exciting, and I can't wait to announce some of those. So I think this is all the live questions that I've been given. So I really appreciate everyone taking the time to listen. I really hope to be doing another one of these soon, and sort of keep the community more in the loop than we have been, because we really appreciate all your support, and I really want to stress just how how far PolySwarm has come, and it's going to be very, very exciting over the next couple of months. So we'll keep you posted. So I'm being told right now that there actually are more questions. So I'm just going to open this up right now. Sorry, guys. One of them is, would it be possible to have more AMAs, possibly quarterly? Yes. I will commit to doing that, but we'll see if I can get some of my colleagues to jump on too. We have so much development work to do that it oftentimes overwhelms everything else. But I will make a priority to do these quarterly. Let's see the chat. I apologize. I've been to do these quarterly. Oh man. So let's see here. I'm being asked where I'm from. Well, right now I'm broadcasting live from our PolySwarm bunker in San Juan, Puerto Rico. But we have a number of offices around the U.S. and actually one in Tokyo. Let's see. Trying to filter some of these out, but I think we got most of them. So I'm surprised there's no personal questions for me. But I really appreciate everyone taking the time, and look forward to talking with you guys again soon. All right, see you guys.